decision. You are choosing something over something else. Hello, and welcome to the Leo section of this course. I'm going to talk about ruling. What does it take to command control over a situation? What happens when we think of leading people and taking them through a process? There's two things that really need to come into play. One are setting good goals, and two is providing containment for the people that are supporting us. There are very interesting ways that these two things interact. It's easy to overlook one for the other, and it's easy to really underestimate the importance of one over the other depending on the situation. So the first thing you need to lead is like a general purpose. Like what are we doing? What are we here for? What do we stand for? You know, you have a purpose, you've got a vision, you do these things. We can really focus that down into like a big picture goal when we're working on. When you create a big picture goal, you want to say like, hey, all right, so what is something that I have not accomplished or we have not accomplished as an organization? What does that look like, and what can that kind of look like going forward, right? Because there's three different types of goals. There's the goals that you already know how to do. There's goals that you're pretty sure you can figure out, and then there's like those big, hairy, audacious goals. And so the first thing you need to be for a leader is you have to really inspire people, and you have to drive them towards those big, hairy, audacious goals. And they have to maybe not know how to get there, but they have to believe they're achievable, right? And a lot of that is going to come in through the containment that you provide to those people, right? As long as they know that they're safe to experiment, be creative, and take risks, they will more than likely be willing to do so. And so that's going to get you closer and closer to those really big goals. How do you set those goals, right? Because it's nothing to work with until we have like what we're working from. And I think one of the most important ways of setting goals is to get everybody involved in the goal to sit down and brainstorm ideas. And you want everyone to be heard through the process. So if you have a big team, maybe you break the team up into groups and listen to everyone. But before you actually set the goal, you need to hear what everybody wants to be the goal. So you're going to have to elicit information from your team. Or if it's your own personal goal, you have to elicit this information from yourself. And either way, it has to be a safe environment where all ideas can be put on the table. And that's a challenge, especially if you have like very negative people you're working with or something like that. But we have to implicitly enter in with all ideas are safe and there will be no further retribution for any ideas, because somebody may come in and say like, hey, our product sucks, we have to redesign everything. That may or may not be the case, but you have to be able to hear that and say like, all right, noted, and you write down the issues, right? So you write down ideas and then you prioritize what the ideas are, right? And so you're going to split them up into, is this something we do already? So if something we do already, like, that's great, we know how to do it, it's a task, like that's not a goal, like that's not what this meeting is for. If we need to like adjust the tasks, we can have a separate meeting, so we can put that in the either the graveyard or the shopping cart or whatever you want to call it. Basically, a point where we can come back to these ideas later. And then we're going to split them up into that second type of goal that, like, all right, we know if we hit these marks so for instance, like that second type of goal would be like, all right, we had sales in September that hit $100,000 or something, or $1,000,000, all right? And now we want to do that like every month, right? That's every month, right? And so like maybe if we're aiming for $100,000, like maybe our low month is like $70,000 or something like that. And so like there's really not that much range. That's like, we definitely know what we need to do that. So like let's strike that, right? A goal that we wouldn't know how to do is like if we're making $100,000 a month and we want to take it up to $1 million. Are we taking our company international? Are we writing our first book? Like, it doesn't have to be a huge goal, but it has to be something you haven't done before and you don't know how to do. And so once you identify those goals that you don't know how to do, ask what's important to your team. Like, why would you choose, go through each goal and say like, hey, why would we choose this over the others? And just go through that process and really kind of zone in on those ideas and say like, hey, this is something, right? It's like what we really want in our gut that we're trying to get to. If your own personal goal, you probably have some inclination at this point of like what you really want. It's that thing that you go, oh, I can't do that, right? So for me, it was quitting my job in writing, right? And so so you want to identify that big goal. And then once you do that, you want to massage it. You want to get it into the right spot. You want to say like, I am so happy and grateful now that I am a published best-selling author. We earn $1 million profit every month. We, whatever it is, whatever that big, hairy, audacious goal is. And then once you kind of massage it into something that you like, why do you want that, right? So make sure that you nail down that why. Like, what are we going for? What are we trying to accomplish by this goal if we haven't already, right? Does it fit with our purpose and our vision? We want to provide information about how the zodiac interacts with our everyday work and kind of translate those ancient conceptual ideas to stuff people can understand in IT. We want $1 million. We want to make sure that our employees are provided for. We want to pay out a stock dividend. We want to, whatever those needs and goals are. How do we kind of build that? And then containment. Containment is providing the necessary resources for people. What's everybody's pay look like? What does we not giving Bob a raise in 3 years? Like, if we haven't, why is he here? Or like, what can we do to help him that he's getting better, right? And so we want to start to like make sure that everyone is taken care of, because not every employee is going to have a come to Jesus moment and be like, well, I'm not supposed to be here. Most people just hang on as long as they can. But the flip side of that is if you need to let somebody go, you also have to be able to convince everybody that is doing a good job that their job is safe and that they're valued and you want them to move forward. How do you do that? How do you provide containment for people? And it's very much like a guy dating a girl. So containment is a very kind of masculine trait. It's something that guys are supposed to do naturally. They're supposed to provide. They're supposed to give a sense of safety. It's very, very Disney-esque. It is basically the stereotypical male role in a relationship, right? There's lots of different types of relationships, but all relationships, for some degree, require some degree of containment. However that works for you in your relationships, that's awesome, but it's got to be there. There is like this security that has to be maintained and provided, and it doesn't have to be overly robust, but it has to be felt. It is getting to that feeling point where you're just like, all right, I understand this is, or where the employee and or the person you're dating or your partner or whoever you're interacting with, your children, are like, all right, I'm safe, my ideas are valued, and I'm getting feedback. It's also, in a lot of ways, making decisions that don't need to be passed downhill. A big one is like, where are we going to eat? Like a typical guy-girl situation for a day is the guy goes, hey, where do you want to go eat? And she is like, oh, I don't know where I want to go eat. And so he goes, how about, I don't know, Taco Bell? And she's like, no, I don't want to do Taco Bell, right? And so we start to do this game of, I throw out an idea and it gets shot down, and I throw out an idea and it gets shot down. What containment is in that situation is understanding that it's your job as the guy in this situation to figure out what she wants. And so a great way to do that is to provide options. Do you want to do fast food or something romantic? And then she's like, oh, I want to do something romantic. And then you're just like, do you want to go to, XYZ Steakhouse or to Margaritas for Mexican? And then giving those choices, you give that sense of like, to the other person, I have agency, I'm doing my thing, yet you're still providing that containment. You're still providing the ideas, you're still kind of going in that direction. Like likewise with employees, you want to say, all right, we can go in this direction or we can go in this direction. And let them discuss it. Let them kind of come to that conclusion. Bring a meal into work and you have chicken or fish as an option. This is why options are provided. It gives people a sense of like, oh, I'm cared for. I can choose what I want. I can go in that direction. This is how I grow as a person. And that's really, really powerful. You want to start combining this sense of goals that we've come to as a community and created, and containment of it's safe to come up with our own ideas. It's safe to approach me with your ideas. It's safe to talk to me if you have a problem. I'm not going to kind of stare at you with a blank face. And if you come asking questions, being like, hey, I'm stuck in this situation, what can I do? There's answers. You can't specifically want something of someone and then not give a clear path to get there. And that's something that like I've definitely experienced. I think a big difference between how I operated at when I was working in jeans and so dungarees, and when I was working in insurance was jeans company wanted like a very specific document optimized. That was really easy because I knew where I needed to work. I had ideas on how to optimize it, and if I went off in the wrong direction, they were like, oh no, they'll just use VBA instead of R, which are coding languages. I was in insurance, they were like, do whatever, expand whatever. And part of that was they didn't know what was down the path, and they didn't want to commit to saying like, oh, we're going to be a Python shop, or oh, we're going to be an Informatica shop. Or when they did recommend something, it was kind of like an incorrect hunch. Like they were like, oh, we're going to do IBM XYZ software, and then we never touched it. So you need to be able to give advice. It needs to be accurate enough, and you need to like fess up if you sent somebody in the wrong direction, because that's how trust is built. because everybody's their own person. Everybody's going to do their own thing. And if they know what they need to study, they'll probably study it, especially if they're a person that is more likely to study. How does this come together when we're talking about ruling and control mechanisms? Because basically we're just coming up with concepts and allowing people to fulfill those concepts. Command and control really comes down to trust and communication. And that's what we're working on creating is, do our employees trust us? Or if you're working on yourself, do you trust yourself to do the right thing? Right? Because if you have to quit your job to do something, that requires an intense degree of trust in yourself. You have to be able to walk yourself through that process. You have to know how you feel. And I did that a lot through meditation. As the more I was able to trust myself, the more I was willing to go out on a limb and say, like, hey, this is the situation. I may not like this particular solution, but it's the solution that I have at the time. A option is better than no option. You have to make a choice to choose the only option there is, or a suboptimal option. And you're constantly making decisions that kind of lead you in that direction. We really want to kind of split what a decision is versus a choice here. A decision comes from Latin, and it literally means to cut off. So when you're making a decision, you are choosing something over something else. When you're making a choice, you're accepting something. You can choose to accept that your daughter has cerebral palsy, right? It's not a decision. Like, you have a daughter and you can choose to accept that she's in that condition. You can choose to accept your parents as they are, or you can make a decision to cut them out of your life, right? You can choose the life you have. You can choose the employees you have. You can choose your financial situation. Maybe you wouldn't be like, I want this financial situation, but you can choose to accept it and work with it. You can choose your wife, right? You're married already. You can choose to stay with your wife. Choice gives us freedom. It gives us freedom to work with what we already have. Decisions are divisive. Choice is inclusive. And so as we choose our situation, we can help those under us also choose their situation. We can enable that growth that happens under us by our leadership and by our ruling situation. Because a lot of ruling is just riding a controlled explosion. It's accepting your fate. And once we accept our fate, we're able to work with it and kind of move through it. One of my really big things as a kid is like, I wanted to be like another Fate. That was my like AOL screen name. It was everything. I still use it. It's still my Instagram as of this recording. What I've learned through the process of kind of growing older and connecting with people is that, like, accept your own fate. Accept what you're going through. It is so much more difficult to fight it. It causes so many more problems. And ruling is accepting what is and making the most of it.